So these are your individual components that you will be needing. You need 2 complete wire sets, one set of wires for your battery, one set of wires for your motor, a complete box assembly with board mounted, a completed switch assembly with wire boot, and top to the box. These are most of the tools that you will be needing for building your 811, and if there's anything missing from here, John will be adding it later in the video. All right, so you will need SJO 14.2 cable. You need one piece that is 6 foot long and one piece that is 8 foot long to start your cable assembly process. So this is your 6 foot and your 8 foot wire set, cut and coiled. Keep in mind that the coil needs to fit into a box that is roughly 8 by 8 in dimension. After these are cut and coiled and bound together with a zip tie in this case, start with your 6 foot cable, and you'll need to use the stripper chart. You have one for the power battery, the power on the box, the motor on the box, and one for the motor end. The power battery and the power box are on the same cable. Power battery in, basically you just lay it in between the lines, kind of mark it with your finger, take your wire stripper, put it on, and all we're doing is stripping the outer case off of the cable. Like so. Then I go to the other end of my wire, drop down the line to the box side. Same thing. From there, motor box end, the one that we just stripped, it's a wire retainer. This goes all the way down to the edge of the black. Make it even with the end of the retainer. Tighten that onto the cable. Other side of the cable, we're going to slip on some heat shrink. Slide it all the way down. Leave yourself anywhere from, here you can go about 3/8 of an inch from the end, and then go ahead and heat shrink that with your heat gun. Another tool you'll need. This just helps to finish out the wire and make it look nice. These are the battery hookup end of your battery cable. These get done Casco standard, so female bullet connector on the white wire and a blue fork on the black wire. On the other end of your cable, the end that's going to go into the box, you know that end by the wire retainer. You're going to take a little over 1 inch off of your white wire, strip that back, and attach one of these small number 4 forks that will later fit on your switch onto the white wire. And from there, your battery cable is ready. So your other cable, your 8 foot cable, this is the motor cable. Start on the power motor box. Do the same stripping technique you use for the battery cable. So we are only doing this to get through the casing of the wire. You will figure out how many turns you need to make, or there may be a different tool in use at the time. The other end of the motor wire is the short end. This is the end that we'll be hooking to the motor. This end gets heat shrink. Does help to have those pre-cut. depending on which SJO cord you have, depends on how easy it is to slide that on. This cord just happens to be a little tougher. Same deal, leave you about 3/8 of an inch. So that helps to dress the cable and also hides in the event that you got too far through and cut the casing on your wire. And gets 2 blue butt connectors. So we just strip our wires back like we normally would. Make sure these are all the way on. Oh, like so, and crimp them. The other end of your wire will get your wire retaining nut. Same deal as the last one. Even that, tighten it down. So now your motor wire is ready. All right, so we prep our switch. If we look at our switch, we see that it has 2 terminals on it. The easiest thing to do is take your switch and lay it down flat on the table so that your one terminal is sticking up, the screw head's sticking up. And we're not going to use that right now. We're going to use the one over here on the side. The preparation for this is a piece of orange wire, about 4 inches long or so. I'm going to strip it back. We're going to use one of the number 4 fork connectors again, because these are what fit the switch. And we need our little screwdriver. So once that's crimped on, take our screwdriver, loosen the terminal on the side. Orange wire goes in, sticking straight up. Tighten that back down, so that when I lay that back down on the table, that's what I have. So our next step is you need a base. They come in like this. They are 3D printed currently. New board in a bag. Open that guy up. Set your little parts bag off to the side. First thing you need to do is check and see if there's an alignment. A little alignment pin sticking up there. That's technically in the way. So we're going to take a file and very carefully, without getting into anything else, just take that off there. Most of these are zinc or some kind of pot metal, and they file off real easy. I also like to go through with my screwdriver and go ahead and turn these all the way out to where they're all the way open. Makes getting the wire in later a lot easier. Both sides. After that, we take our board, set it into our 3D printed base. It should fit right on the post. There are 4 little posts, 4 little holes. It'll sit right on there. Doesn't matter which direction. Once that's set on there, we take our soldering iron and we are going to melt the little tips of plastic that are sticking up, just like that, so that it will hold the board to the base mount. Being careful not to touch anything else on the board with our extremely hot soldering iron. Next step, we're going to grab one of our 3D printed boxes. Because of the nature of the 3D printer, the holes never come out round. They're always oblong. On this hole, it doesn't matter. These 2 holes in the back, it does matter. We're going to take our step bit and true those up. And with some kind of a knife or something, you want to make sure that we trim off the excess that we just drilled from the outside of the box, so that when we put our retaining nuts on there, they will sit flush. Always make sure you get all debris back out of the box. You also need to come to the front of the box, and the top of this hole needs to be up just a little bit higher. You'll have to check the fit of your circuit board to see if it needs to be done or not. In the case right now, we still have to take out a little bit on the top to make them sit flat. Just about like that. Also making sure we trim off the excess front and back. Now we are ready to be able to mount our circuit board in the box. We do that with the glue. Where'd the glue go? So basically, before we start the glue, open up our little parts bag here. The only thing in the parts bag you're going to need is the knob and the retaining washer. Well, nut, which is this guy right here. So we're going to take a little bit of our adhesive, very thin layer on the back here. And this guy should lay right down in here in the bottom, slide through, kind of hold it down with one hand for a second, make sure that's pressed all the way forward, and take your nut. And there's not going to be very many threads sticking out here. But you want to get that started on there with your hands. Once it is, very carefully, you can use a socket. I'm just using what's convenient. Put a couple little extra turns on that guy so you know it's not coming off. After about 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute, your adhesive should be pretty much set in the bottom. Take your knob, turn it all the way to the left to hear it click. And then take your knob, stick it on the front. There is a little indicator on this one. I like to set them all the way down to the far left, and then it just presses on. Make sure that everything's working. You can hear the click. See that our knob turns all the way, and now our box is prepped. All right, so now that we have all of our assembled parts together, we can do our final assembly. I'll start by taking this off because you will not be using this part anymore. This gets thrown away. Retain this, you definitely need that. That's your on and off plate. And then your bottom nut here, you can adjust to size, but I already know I need to bring it up a little bit because I don't need all that sticking out the side. All right, so just set that off to the side. First thing you're gonna do is grab your motor wire. Now on these boards, it is not clearly marked in and out. It is written in Mandarin. There is translation on the guide for stripping the wires as far as what is in and what is out. I just happen to know from doing these that when I look at this from the knob side, that my motor wire goes on the right side and my battery wire goes on the left side. Also, this should help. The on-off switch is on the left side from the knob side of the unit. So first thing we do, take our motor wire. We're going to come all the way through. There's a nut that goes on here. Go ahead and push that all the way through. You want to make sure this is flushed against the back of the box, which as long as we trimmed after we sized earlier, it should be. And we want to tighten that down pretty tight. In the very end, we'll put a little bit of glue on there to make sure it doesn't move. After we got our nut tightened down, start with the back terminal, which is negative. We're going to strip just a little bit of wire off the end there. Notice there is not very much sticking out. We kind of want to tighten that up a little bit. Try to get just a little bit more than that. And the easiest thing to do is to train the wire before you start trying to put it in. You're gonna come right past the wire and you're gonna put a 90-degree bend in it. Just like so. This is gonna make it easier to guide that wire into the hole. So we're gonna start in, take your screwdriver if need be, and work that all the way in there where it is. All the way in. You cannot have any extra wire frayed off to the sides. All the wires have to be in. Once we're in, we tighten down. Now, this one was not prepped ahead of time. That's why that was giving us fits. There we go. So do make sure that your screws are backed all the way out. Otherwise, that's really difficult to get in there. There we go. Nice and easy. And we tighten. Get that down as tight as you can. Notice if you keep torquing on it, it's moving the connector on the board. You don't want to twist it too hard. Once you're done, take your screwdriver, try and pull that wire back out. Make sure you can't. That wire's done. That tucks down into the side of the box onto the power positive wire, which is white. Kind of the same deal. I'm going to strip that back. A little cleaner than that. Maybe. There we go. We're going to put in our 90. Notice it is just past where it's stripped. Again, make sure the screw is all the way out, so turn all the way to the left. Lay our wire down in there. Kind of help guide it in a little bit. Nice and easy. You need to be able to, there we go, hold that in place while we tighten it down. Same deal, give it a little pull. Make sure it won't come back out. Motor side is done. Power side does help that if you lay your cables out ahead of time, kind of keep everything in a straight and neat order, it all lays together easier in the end. Same deal, you're going to come in, make sure that's flushed up against the back, put our nut on, we're going to tighten that all the way down. Now, take your white wire, stand it up, get it out of the way. Ground wire is going to go on first, the black wire. Same deal, make sure your screws are all the way out. Strip back just a little bit. Wires. Same thing, put that 90-degree bend in there. Now you should be able to lay that in. There we go. All the way in. Tighten. Back out and lay that back wire down up against the side of the box just like that. The whole reason we have to do that is because our switch is going to come in now and be put in from this side. We want to make sure that we reinstall the little guide that tells us which direction is on, which direction is off. There is a channel and a little cutout here so that you can get that in the right direction. And we use a boot cover on our switch to help make it water resistant. And we're going to tighten that all the way down as tight as we can get it. Okay, Our white wire with our connector on it is going to go right here on this terminal of the switch. Make sure we tighten that all the way down. Not so tight that it breaks anything. Our orange wire sticking up here is now the wire that will be going into the side of the board. Again, make that 90. This is probably the most difficult one of the group because you've got everything else in the box with it already. There we go. I can hold that wire there while I tighten it down. Make sure it doesn't come out. And that's it. That is a fully assembled 811 internal workings. This unit is now ready to be tested. Do not glue the top on until after it is tested. All right, so now we're hooked up to our little homemade test bench here. Things just kind of plug in on the bench. Make sure our main power switch is on. And we are testing to make sure that we can adjust the speed back and forth. That's good. Our final test, we'll let it run at a low speed, hit the master on the side, turn it off, let it stop, and turn it back on, hopefully to see it go back to roughly the same speed that you left it at when you turned it off. And if all that works fine, we can turn the speed controller back off. At this point, we're ready to glue the top on. In the event that this is still here, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to plug your bullet connectors together. You're going to use this ground, or you can use any of the other multiple grounds. And these two posts sticking out are for your butt connectors to slide onto. Black to black and orange to white. Doesn't really matter if you get those right or not. The fan just spins backwards. When we put our lid on, the very first thing we do is make sure that the lid fits the box. And we do that by snapping the lid all the way down to make sure that it's going to sit on there. In this case, it does, so nothing needs to be trimmed. We pull our lid back off, run a very thin line of glue all the way around the box lid. It's going to stay right here in this little crack. Ideally, you do not want glue squirting out everywhere when you put your lid on. When we got our glue on, we just take our lid, set it on top. I like to put something heavy on top of it and let it sit for a few. In this case, we're going to use this little motor. And we just let it sit. Okay, so the very last thing you're going to do is get your finished 811 looking like this. You'll find your manila tags with your warning labels. They will be zip tied onto both wire sets so that the customer has to cut that off there, meaning they saw it. And make sure that you have label sets on your motor wire and your battery wire. That's it. Oh yeah, lick my something. Like and subscribe. That's right.